Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lisa Travers here from Alliance Corporation. I have with me on the line, so if anyone's ever attended one of our webinars, you would know that usually we do a brief introduction to Alliance. We're not going to do that today, but I do have on the line Louis Lambert from Redline Communications, and he's going to be backed up by Rod Cronin from Redline Communications. Unfortunately, Patrick Leary could not be with us today. Louis is going to explain. Without further ado, Louis is going to do the presentation and explain exactly what CBRS means. I'm looking forward to it because I have heard it once and I still don't really understand. So, Louis, it's over to you. You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Alliance, for this great opportunity for us to share some thoughts with those of you on the phone. I'm assuming, Lisa, you can hear me well, right?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Good. And we have an hour, correct?
We have an hour, yeah.
Good. So it's with great joy that we have the opportunity to share some thoughts with you guys. Patrick called me in a bit of a panic a few hours ago. He's having to deal with a personal emergency, and he sends his best regards. There is no way to fill Patrick's shoes easily, so I'm not even going to attempt that. So I'm short and fat. He's tall and very healthy, right? So I'm sorry to be the substitute presenter, but we will get started with this. So CBRS is a very important topic for anybody in the telecom industry, especially on US soil, but there are people from all around the world that are actually watching what's happening with CBRS, especially because of the ecosystem that CBRS is developing, right? So before we get started, Redline's very big on health and safety, and I just want to make sure that if you are in a car, it's moving, if you're the driver, and you're listening to this webinar, I'm sure Lisa is recording it. I would certainly encourage you not to attempt to do this. Focus on the task at hand and not risk your life or anybody else's life. However, if you're all good and ready, or you can park on the side of the road, we will get continuing right now. We have
yes, it is being recorded. Yes.
Okay, good. So there are a number of safety rules within the company. One of them is definitely not to attend any one of these seminars while you're driving. So what is CBRS? Well, it stands for Citizen Band Radio Service, and it really is the evolution of the old 365, something that has been started over about a decade ago, right? The real important thing about CBRS, and you're going to hear me say this a few times, it is a gift from the US government for everybody that wants to operate radio services or broadband services and could not do it effectively or predictably with the 5/8 band and could not afford the money of real private LTE spectrum, as an example. So it was originated by Obama's administration, and it was going to be reserved for all the non-carrier operators. So originally, the proposal was not for carriers, not allowed. When the new administration came in place, I guess they were looking for some money. They said, no, absolutely, they're allowed. The carriers are allowed. They're going to bring us more money, right? So as it stands right now, the CBRS rules have not been completely formalized and not made 100% public because the voting will occur in October timeframe. It was supposed to be September. Before that, it was supposed to be August. It's been delayed a couple of times, but let's face it, it's a gift of about 150 megahertz of spectrum, and it takes a little bit of time before that gift becomes available. So some of the things that are important with CBRS is that it is being shared with some of the incumbent marine and some other important stakeholders. So they had to figure out a way to set the systems so the incumbent operator could use the system, but other operators, such as all of us on the phone, could actually enjoy the extra bandwidth. For the first time, the FCC is actually regulating the use of the spectrum in time and in space. So rather than you go and get an application and you're good to go and nobody else is, regardless if you use it or not, this is regulated in time, so time of use, and in space with regard to geography. So this is the very first attempt of any carriers around, any regulators in the world to do that, and the US is leading the charge on this. So if you were using some 365 spectrum, you would have some familiarity with the spectrum capability, but you would have familiarity with very low power. CBRS will bring up to 50 watts of transmit power if you have a PAL license, and it's quite impressive with regard to what is it you can do with that kind of capacity. The use case for CBRS are various. I mean, they're all over. Indoor, outdoor, industrial, commercial. Some of the big users of CBRS will be the carriers. The mobile carriers will use CBRS in the major urban center as augmentation of their LTE spectrum. That's a good thing. So a lot of people would say, we don't want that. You want that. And the reason why we all want this is that when AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint start using CBRS as augmentation for their LTE network, then it puts pressure on Apple, Samsung, Cisco, and everybody to produce their device with the CBRS band. All the major manufacturers of handsets and mobile router have all stepped up and said their next generation of product for the US market will be CBRS ready. Meaning, if you wait then 6 months to a year to buy the next cell phone, it will be CBRS ready. So for the very first time, those of us on the phone will be able to build a network with some good security on the access of the spectrum and have access to off-the-shelf device at off-the-shelf pricing. It's actually a very good thing. The carriers are not going to be interested in lighting up very rural environment or oil and gas patch or factory plants, but those of us on the phone will all have access to this ecosystem of device that is now speaking the language of the spectrum that we're using. This has not been the case ever in a US soil or anywhere in the world, right? So 3 tiers of main user for CBRS. So the incumbent are the ones that are getting the top priority. They get whatever they want, right? And the incumbent, we're familiar with them. Those of us that work in 365 space know who they are, know where the radars are. We have a really good idea. What becomes new is that rather than be like the old 365 where it's a free-for-all, you get a license but there's no policing, now there's some policing. And the tier 2 are people that will actually go to auction, bid, secure a piece of spectrum, and they will be chunks of 10 megahertz spectrum. These chunks of 10 megahertz spectrum will be acquired by the bidders, and these are going to be managed in space and in time by the SAS system. So the radios will be able to cover the entire band, but you don't necessarily know which one of these channels you're going to get. The SAS will assign them to you. And the third tier is anybody that buys any equipment that is compatible with the CBRS band. As you connect the equipment, it will automatically go to the SAS and it will be given some spectrum. It will not be given tier 1 spectrum because that's reserved for the incumbent. And it will not give you the same spectrum as a PAL owner unless the PAL owner is not using their spectrum. So we'll cover that in a few more slides. So the top 3 tiers priority, or the 3 tiers of priority, we kind of discussed briefly. But what's really important is that these 3 tiers need to be clearly understood. None of us on the phone, unless you're military, are going to be able to use tier 1. All of us on the phone are able to bid for PAL or tier 2. And the bidding process is something that's going to start after the FCC decision has been done. and it's expected that it will be at least 6 months before the first auction will come in. So we're not in bidding process. You don't need to prepare a bid. You don't need to be worried. There is no way to prepare a bid right now. The only thing that one can do today is go to their CFOs and say, I'm going to be bidding on some spectrum, put some money aside, right? That's about the only thing you can do. So there will be a total of 7 PALs that will be going for bid in every region, a total of 70 megahertz. That's assuming the rule doesn't change before it is final, right? This is the information as it is today. Nobody will be able to buy more than 4 PAL in one region. So you cannot have somebody hogging the entire spectrum. And the PALs that are not taken, so there's 7 PAL going for auction. If there's nobody that puts if there's not enough requisition for PAL, and there's only 3 that are allocated in a specific area, the rest becomes GAA, right? Later on, if somebody wants to put an auction, it could become a PAL. Another thing that is really important is the SAS applies to everybody except Tier 1. It does apply with Tier 1, but not the same function. So whatever you're a PAL license holder because you won the auction, or you're a GAA user, you have to deal with the SAS, and your equipment has to be able to talk to the SAS. One thing that is very important, no PAL may exist in the upper 50 megahertz. So the upper 50 megahertz is protected. Hence, the statement that you hear from the FCC sometimes, or some analysts saying, CBRS is good because there's at least 50 megahertz of spectrum throughout the US, except in an exclusion zone, that will still be available for users. So there is a 50 megahertz gift from the FCC coming your way, regardless if you win an auction or not. So the third priority is GAA, which is really the one that is of interest immediately. GAA becomes available the day the FCC finalizes the ruling, and it's currently expected to be in October. If it gets pushed a month, if it gets pushed 2 months, then the GAA gets pushed. Realistically speaking, at this point, we all waited so long for that kind of gift from the government that whatever it's a month or 2 delay, we should all be happy because there's something pretty good coming our way, right? The GAA users are definitely part of the SAS, right? All GAA users will be sharing that spectrum. And there's no such thing as I'm applying to be a GAA user. By connecting equipment to the network, you become a GAA user. So if you were a 365 license holder, and I put license in bracket here because it was not policed, and you filed all the paperwork to be grandfathered, you're in good shape. If you did not file the paperwork on time to be grandfathered, you probably have received by now a letter saying cease and desist and move away from that spectrum. So there will be some of you on the phone that have received that letter. We know some people that I've seen some of these letters, and people were just upset that they missed the deadline, and other people have actually got some grandfathered from the government. So the PAL rules are quite important for everybody to understand what these rules are. The PAL rules define what are the rules of engagement if you bid and you are one of the winner. If you bid and you're not a winner, you're a GAA user. So these rules only apply for people that will bid and win. The current thinking is it will be by census tract. However, there's a strong current thinking that in major urban, it will not be by census tract. It will be much greater area. What's really important for most of us on the phone is that if you get out of the major city and you're an operator and you're looking for some spectrum, you got this gift coming to you, you got a huge ecosystem coming to you, and it will most likely be census tract outside of the major area. So when the auction is done, these PALs are going to be floating spectrum, meaning if you're a Nawardi, you're being told you won 1 or 2 PALs, right? You're not being told what's the channel, where it is. They will inform the SAS when your equipment is fired up and it recognizes you, it will give you some channels. And it's floating. It could be this channel, you know, for this month, and it could be this, it could change. right? There is the ability for the SAS to make some change in order to adapt to a naval event happening out there in the network. So power level. Power levels are very, very important, and we're going to spend a little bit of time here. So we're all used to what Wi-Fi can do, right? Roughly 1 watt. Now imagine 50 watt, right? So the opportunity is phenomenal. Now 50 watt for the base station, that's great, but how do you get the data back to the base station at the remote end, right? So I want to make sure that we put a small damper on this, which is 50 watt is phenomenal. And in some application, a huge downlink capacity and range is attractive. But in some other application, you want more of a balanced link budget. So your category A, which is basically your Wi-Fi equivalent. So you're connecting a device out there or indoor, you're using the CBRS band, this device is going to be going to the SAS, it's going to be either given to you a GAA spectrum, or maybe you are lucky awardee and you get some PAL spectrum. And you start radiating. Even with category A, you start radiating, let's say in a building or in a factory or a plant, and we're a year and a half from now or a year from now, and you've got people going to the Verizon store buying the brand new iPhone, the new Samsung phone, and guess what? They're compatible with your CBRS network. That is phenomenal. So whatever you're doing, indoor or outdoor, category A or category B, now you have devices that are becoming available on the market to talk to your equipment if your equipment is LTE or if your equipment is ready for that, right? Category B is what most of us are going to be looking at because of outdoor deployment. Having the extra power is going to be phenomenal because it's going to save you on tower costs, it's going to give you better reach, there's a number of advantages, right? But the most significant takeaway point here is that it's good to have lots of power. You just need to always remember that you need to bring the data back, right? So the category B, because of their capacity and their power, cannot be deployed willy-nilly until the PALs are done and the ESC is done. So we'll cover the ESC in a couple of slides, but you can imagine that you've got naval activity or you got a PAL winner coming in and you got 50 watt right next to it. So there is some policing as to deploying category B, and it will take some time in order to do that. We'll cover that.
Louis?
Yeah?
Louis, sorry, just a point from Richard on the, I should say on the line, but out there. Category A devices which cannot geolocate must be installed by a CPI.
Yeah, so there is some possibility that change. So I didn't want to get into this because the ruling is not final, but there are some people out there that are petitioning against that. So I'd say that this point is probably going to last, but it's in the air. So okay. I think we all, this presentation, there's some work put into it, but the caveat is, guys, things could change. Hopefully not too much, but things could change. So I'll reserve the answer on that one just because it's been petitioned for, right? But that's a good question, and I think this is something that Redline wants to do on a regular basis. We are getting ready to do a regular CBRS update seminar. And as the rule approach and as the ruling is done, we're going to continue to do these regular seminar with our friend Patrick this time rather than the substitute teacher. Did you have another question, Lisa?
A couple more comments. Sorry, hold on. He just also added category A devices which cannot PALs do not have to be completed for category B deployment.
So the ESC has to be completed, right? And the current thinking is that unless this person knows more than what we've heard, and it's quite possible, our understanding is that the ESC will definitely be tied to some of the PAL things. The ESC may come in earlier than PAL, and hopefully it does, but it could be related. Rodney, do you have any additional comments on this?
Yeah, in non-DPA areas, no ESC is required.
Okay, well, that's quite possible.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Thanks.
So, and again, Patrick's the expert. I'm not, so I will refer to the rest of the group here. But Lisa, I am not equipped to take notes now, but if you can take some notes, we'll have Patrick do Q&A after, right?
Yes, exactly, we will, yeah.
So in order to protect the incumbent, the ESC is coming to play, right? So the ESC is being rushed. However, it could be, there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of petitions and a lot of people talking about ESC. So because the first ruling is expected to come in October, there are some chances that there's some changes. However, the current thinking is that ESC will apply in most area, not all area, and then the ESC will be the one that will be the gauge factor to get access to more power. So that's the big thing about the ESC, which is, if you want to use higher power, you're going to need to wait for them to open up the ESC. Now, some things are not 100% clear, and there's some subtleties here, where Category B CBSDs will be limited to the upper 50 until the ESC is deployed. So there's some subtleties here where you could deploy Category B on day one if you're in the upper 50 meg, right? So there are a number of people that are considering to doing this. Some customers and prospects of ours are considering to do this, and this is one of the workaround. Hopefully this doesn't get squashed before the ruling happens, because this is certainly of interest to vendors and operators, right? But that's a subtlety. It allows you that workaround for an interim period of time until the ESC becomes available. Another subtleties is you're going to hear people such as Redline that have LTE product to say that CBRS is all about LTE. So the manufacturer that don't have LTE product, they say you don't need LTE, right? The truth is you don't need LTE. The FCC does not mandate a technology. You can use whatever technology as long as the technology that you have can talk to the SAS, right? We have two technology. We have this virtual fiber that is proprietary, like Cambium and Radwin and all of these other guys. But we also have an LTE. Our thinking as a company is because Sprint, Verizon, and AT&T are forcing the device manufacturer to make CBRS part of their device. Now, if you have an LTE-based radio on a CBRS spectrum, you have access to all of these devices, and you have access to full mobility. And on top of that, to make it even nicer, if one of these AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon was to come to you and say, hey, I'd like to terminate some traffic or upload some traffic in your network, you can get a seat at the table. If you don't have an LTE network, you don't get invited at that table. So we believe that the massive movement of ecosystem devices that are becoming CBRS compliant and they're all LTE will be swaying the balance when somebody's looking at what technology do I use in this CBRS band, right? If you have existing technology that can be software upgradable or whatnot, you're fine because you can manage that. But if you're going to be doing something brand new, we believe that LTE will be the absolute driver here. So it is neutral, but the massive amount of ecosystem players is lining up, right? We also believe that because LTE has a full-blown QoS, unlike Wi-Fi, and because LTE allows you to do QoS on a per application base, per device base, you got a large capability there, that there's going to be a tremendous amount of Wi-Fi APs that are going to be replaced by CBRS. So that's the opinion of my employer and most manufacturers that are playing in this playground, right? So a couple of myths that needs to be talked about, right? It's not all rosy and it's not all perfect. It is a gift. It is a beautiful gift from the government, but we need to understand the nature of the gift, right? So the government will be able to shut down my network. Well, the government can shut down any network. They can shut down AT&T if they want. They just need to get Trump's signature and they shut it down, right? So the federal government can shut down any network. It's called a presidential order, right? However, that's not really realistic for that conversation, but that's the fact, right? CBRS SAS is not run by the government. So the government gives the spectrum, but they're not managing the SAS. The SAS is not government owned, and the SAS is the one that tells you if you can radiate or not, and which channel you're going to get, and what power, and all of these things, right? The SAS can temporarily suspend a wireless traffic if you have some of these conditions that we list there before, right? Radar pops up, or the ESC triggers and say, wait a minute, you're too close, shut down, right? But unless it's an emergency, most of these shut down that people are scared of is actually a notice that you get from the SAS and a notice to comply, right? And you're being told to comply. You're not being shut down, right? So I like to compare it to operating in a 5 gig space. You built a great network out there, you're operating a 5 gig space, and two Bob in a truck company comes in, they fire up a bunch of equipment without talking to you because they don't know you. They fire them up and they're right next to you and they shut you down. They don't do it on purpose, but they shut you down, right? So the SAS would not do this, but the SAS could potentially move you or do some of these things with a notice. It's a lot more civilized than two Bob in a truck come in and kill you, right? And at least there's recourse, there's rules, and there's engagement. And the SAS would do this only if in the case of an emergency. So it's not private spectrum, like you own it and nobody can on it, but it's far better than 5.8. And it's far better than 365 ever was, because there was just no policing in 365. Redline has a lot of work done in the oil field in the Eagleford area in Texas, near San Antonio. At one point, there was 30 license holder of 365 with no police. The SAS would never get there, right? Because they would be police. So one of the most important myths, and it will come from your management saying, well, we don't want to use this because we can get shut down. Well, we can get shut down in unlicensed. That's the first thing. The second, and have no recourse. The second thing is the SAS is not there to shut us down. The SAS is there to do spectrum management in space and in time. And that's much better than shutting down. That's adapting to their requirement and giving protection to one, the incumbent, two, the PAL, and then the GAA, right? So it will protect one GAA versus another GAA, right? If there's only interference potential, or if there's people that are trying to do this within the GAA domain, the SAS will still try to manage the best possible way. And especially in rural place where most of us are operating, if you don't have 7 PALs sold, then these PALs are not taking spectrum. So if there's only 2 or 3 instances of PAL, there's that much more spectrum that is being freed up. And if you're still concerned about this, you can operate in the upper 50 megahertz where there's no Navy radar. And for sure, there's not going to be a priority 1 coming in, popping up, at the top of the hour. So second myth that is really important to make sure that we all understand. I don't want to use CBRS because Big Brother is going to be looking over my data and the government's going to be looking over, right? So this happens, especially management in the banking world, the oil and gas world, mining world. They're very nervous about their data, right? The data is their business. So let's go back to remember that the SAS is not owned by a government and not controlled by a government. Let's also remember the way the SAS works. Your radio is connecting to the SAS and saying, this is the azimuth, this is where I am, this is what I'm trying to do. It doesn't say this is the data I'm transporting, right? So the SAS does not breach any security breach. Let's remember the SAS is also involved for priority 1 users. So one could assume that the US military would not use something that looks at the data, right? So the SAS is a completely safe and secure environment. It is not touching your data. The only communication going between the SAS and your equipment is some basic information on location and power. As a matter of fact, depending on the category, it has more or less information exchange with the SAS. As you can imagine, excuse me, the higher the transmit power, the more the SAS is interested to knowing who you are and where you are. So another myth that is really interesting, it's to understand where these DPA zones are, right? They're not all over the place, right? At the end of the day, they're there to protect the land, and that's where they are. So what one wants to understand is that if you're existing there, and we're talking to somebody right now that is close to a DPA, they're worried about using CBRS, but they were able to use 365. So if you were able to use 365, you will be able to use CBRS at a minimum, right? So no big change there from what your knowledge is of CBRS, of 365. You can take that same knowledge and move forward. Now, a few more slides that are helping those of you that are excited about this, but maybe their management's not excited or are not completely convinced yet. Why is there so much enthusiasm about CBRS? Well, if you were a spectrum orphan and you only were allowed to use the 365 or the 5.8 or the 2.4, you just got a gift from a government. And that's never happened in most of our career time, right? Maybe a few older ones, but most people on the phone, that has not happened before. So this new gift is very, very, very exciting, because there's congestion of the spectrum in a number of places around the US, whether you're in the main city or in an industrial area. There's some areas in California or in Texas that has more noise floor than in downtown some of the big cities, right? So getting CBRS is phenomenal. The second thing that is really, really interesting, and of course for us at Redline, that's the reason why we spent 4 years investing, is LTE. Let's face it, there is just no other over-the-air protocol in the world that is more advanced. End of story. It's the most advanced air protocol. It gives you the biggest capacity, all of this stuff. It brings an ecosystem that is phenomenal. It brings an interoperability that is phenomenal. You can get online right now, quantity 1, CPE for CBRS for less than $200. You can get that from the people that are hosting this call, right? So the fact is there's an ecosystem that is brewing that is just phenomenal. And these come in with a Wi-Fi built in, right? So you get a Wi-Fi hotspot too. So this is the first time in all of our career that you can actually build a standards-based network. WiMAX was the closest thing, right? But WiMAX was not really interoperable at the end of the day. So now it's fully interoperable, fully standards-based. It comes with at least a decade of proven existence in the carrier space. And you now can put on your network device that will have a SIM card that people could have bought at the store. And I know we all want to sell device, but the explosion of the size of the network and the traffic coming in on the network, the opportunity, the addressable market that CBRS gives you is unprecedented. So the big change is now you get spectrum and you can use LTE, right? Now, another thing about LTE is mobility, right? drones. Think about people walking in a field, in oil field, in mines, and all of this. Now you get full mobility. You're operating a private LTE network on a spectrum that was given to you by the government. That's pretty spectacular, right? So the global harmonization is very, very important. Today, CBRS is a US phenomenon, right? Canada will probably follow. It usually does, right? We are seeing people in South America, in Europe, asking us, can we get some more? We have one of our executives flying down to South America next week to talk about CBRS to a group of customers that wants to do this and want to petition the regulator, right? So it's going to be phenomenal for people to be able to look at having a band that has been globalized. The SAS is phenomenal, right? On the SAS piece, you now have somebody in space and time that are policing the use of the spectrum, and this SAS will allow you to have a good rest at night, not worried that somebody's going to fire up a system and kill your system in the middle of the night. So the SAS, as much as a number of people complained that they didn't want some kind of third party interfering with their network, you actually want that. Ideally, you spend a lot of money and you buy your own spectrum, and you don't need any of that. You have your own spectrum. But if you don't have the money to have your own spectrum, the second best thing is the SAS, and it did not exist before. So the SAS is a good thing, and it allows you to get access to the spectrum free of charge, and it's going to be monitored in space and in time, which was not done before, right? So what will change out there, right? Some of the key things that will change and things that we can take to the bank is that it is likely that MSAs will be used in main city rather than Cestus track. It is likely the FCC will leave a couple of PALs for a special campus type environment. It is likely that the licensing term will be pushed to 10 years. There's a number of associations that have lobbied for this. And then it is likely that the PAL auction will only happen towards the end of 2019. It could be delayed. But there's nothing preventing any one of us to move with GAA on day one. GAA is still far better than unlicensed, unpoliced, no SAS 5.8. So if you're planning a network deployment today, whatever it's an overall or brand new or anything like this, and you're considering 5.8 and you're considering CBRS, it doesn't take much to start realizing that CBRS will be a much better play. It gives you access to LTE, it gives you access to an SAS, and it gives you access to a large ecosystem of device. Hence, Redline's investment for so many years, so much investment in LTE, because it is the next gate to some network security. So you need to understand that even if the PAL may not come in right away, the GAA will be there and will allow you to function right away. I think I've kind of covered some of these bullets here. And we covered some of these things earlier on, but Category B CBSDs will be limited to the upper 50, right? And until the ESC are deployed. Category A are really going to be all over the map, right? You're going to see a lot of Category A in building. It makes a lot of sense for an enterprise client to have in-building private cellular technology for all their end user device rather than use Wi-Fi. Think about all the device that you have inside a corporate plant or a big corporate campus, and now you add QoS on it. And it's the same device that when you leave the campus, it switches from CBRS to T-Mobile or LTE or whatever, right, or AT&T. So because it's the same handset, right? So tablets, PC, handsets, including the likes of Lenovo and Dell, have already said that they're really considering CBRS. So bring your own device, or BY, the bring your own device acronym now will extend to LTE rather than just historically has been Wi-Fi. Some of the economics that are really interesting, and I always hesitate to show these because this is Harbor research. Somebody else will come up with a different graph that will be slightly different. So the fact is, take it for what it's worth. It's directionally right. It may not be 100% the same as another research group, but they're going to be in the same direction. CBRS is a revenue generation opportunity for the government. It's not 100% a gift free of charge. So if you want to buy a PAL, you will be spending some money. It will certainly not be the kind of money that you're looking at for private spectrum, but it will give you access to much better than semi-private spectrum. I'll spend a couple of minutes on this slide, and then we'll leave lots of time for questions. So one cannot think about CBRS without thinking about LTE, especially when you start reading the press that all the device manufacturers will include CBRS on their next generation device. So it's kind of forcing the hand, right? So the link budget is far greater than Wi-Fi, far greater. Mobility is free. It comes with it. You have much higher level of security than Wi-Fi or for even proprietary network, because now you have a SIM card in every device, right? So you have the SIM card security, you have the SIM card profile security, you have it over-the-air security, and you have the whole concept of a core. Now, because if you're operating an LTE network, you can shut down somebody at a moment's notice from your core, right? All of us have seen, movies where guys in Black Ops are coming in and listening to somebody's cell phone, turning on the camera, turning on the microphone remotely. That's all part of the LTE standard. It's not available to the AT&T and the Verizons of the world because they're not allowed to do this on their own. But if you built your own private LTE network, you can do that, right? It's in the standard. The equipment can do that, right? So you can operate some real nifty solution for an industrial customer with a man-down application and things like this, right? You get security around the RAN and the core. I kind of talked about this. You get the capacity. LTE offers you phenomenal capacity. It offers that to you to the device that are available on the market. Interestingly enough, everybody talks about LTE for broadband and what we experience every day of the week. But you get this entire narrowband LTE that is either within band or on the sideband that allows you to have two networks. You have your broadband network and you have your narrowband IoT network, all within the same standards base with device that you buy from guys like Alliance, right? Off the shelf. You've got voice over IP like you do on Wi-Fi, but you can do it on LTE, and you also have VoLTE. Now you can have push to talk. As an example, the company speaking to you right now, we have our own push to talk system. Our staff have push to talk client on our phone, and we run our own private push to talk network. Whether we're on our network or we're roaming on Bell, Rogers, Verizon, if you come to see us at any one of the shows, ask the guys, right? Show me your push to talk. So now, but you can now deliver this on your private network, right? And it's difficult to do that with a Wi-Fi device, right? Because you need a mobile device to do that. Because how are you going to do this? You're going to use it only when you're at your desk. Push to talk equals mobility. And obviously the IoT, low power, low battery consumption, the 10-year, you're hearing about IoT, 10-year battery on a remote device. That's all LTE based. So we did a lot of talking. We had a couple of good intervention from Rick. And if it's the Rick that I think it is, he's right, regardless of what he says. If it's not the Rick that I think it is, then I will verify with Patrick. But if it's the one I'm thinking of, I will have Patrick and Rick talk after this call, and Patrick can send you some stuff, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm here. It's actually a friend. He's a friend, and I thought I'd ask him if he'd mind commenting, but I don't want to put him on the spot.
Okay.
Anyways, we have a lot of good questions, so I'm going to try to...
I may need the backup of Rodney here, so maybe you open up Rodney's mic as well.
Yeah, let me just make sure I can do that.
Yeah, I was muted.
Okay, great. So, okay, I'm going to try to group them together. One of the first questions that I'm also curious about myself is, I'm going to read it out. Okay. Okay, I'm currently licensed until before that. What was the grandfather deadline? I have not seen or received a letter regarding licensing.
Do you want to answer this, Rodney? There are two dates, and I don't want to make a mistake. So there was a deadline date to file for keeping some.
Oh, April 2015, Richard says. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Okay. Regarding the licensing, again, for someone who's also, so quite a few people have commented, and that's where I'm kind of wondering what's going on. So for people who are already operating WiMAX equipment, what's going to happen to that? So this person's question was, okay, I'm currently licensed until 2025. I have hundreds of registered sites, including APs and subscribers. I did not meet the deadline as I did not begin installing until after that date cutoff. I did, however, register all my sites successfully with the FCC after that cutoff date. Going forward, will I be able to continue using the 365 to 3700 or not?
So, Rodney, want to answer that?
Or maybe we should have Rick answer that. But our understanding is they will allow a SAS proxy. I am not aware currently of anyone that's building a SAS proxy standalone model. We will have a SAS proxy in our equipment to deal with LTE type devices. However, for WiMAX, I'm not sure of any SAS proxies available yet.
And I'll add to this that Lisa, we have a customer in that very same situation, and to this date, they have not been able to find a WiMAX proxy for CBRS. So not sure what the answer is, and frankly, we have not been as close to WiMAX as a company as some others, because we spend so much time on our proprietary and our LTE stuff. If somebody's on the phone that no one answered that we don't know of, please communicate with either Rodney, myself, and Lisa, and we can send a better answer after. But to date,
well,
we don't know.
Actually, I do have, sorry, he's just chimed in to say this is not WiMAX, but I guess it doesn't matter if it's WiMAX, it's just it's the spectrum.
The proxies are designed for LTE equipment to date. So
our expert who has chimed in, who said you can operate in 365 until your license date ends, then you must go off the spectrum or migrate to CBRS.
Correct. And I've seen some of these letters, and we're talking to some of these companies, and frankly, in all disclosure, without telling you who they are, they're debating, should we go CBRS or should we go back to 5.8? There is some thinking that says that if so many people are going to go CBRS, will the 5.8 become freer, right? So it's a judgment call by all you guys in your region, which is if you receive that nasty letter, you've got to vacate. It's cease and desist. You have to. And then you have to go, am I going to go CBRS or am I going to go, let's say, 5.8? And in either way, you're probably going to have to buy new equipment.
Okay. So I do have another question here that someone just asked. Jill asked, what information do you have about the professional installer where we are in the status of the certification building, etc.?
Well, Rodney may have a more accurate answer. I can tell you that Redline from day one, I've always believed that people should use professional installers to install equipment. A lot of our customers, wireless ISPs or industrial customers, been to a significant amount of training to be able to do this rather than just use somebody off the cuff, right? So professional installation is usually more suitable, but I don't know what the FCC is going to do with this.
Apparently, the FCC is going to say that most equipment will require a certified professional installer.
That's what we're hearing, right? But there was some petition. There was some petition to avoid that. We believe that it should be done by professional people, just like you don't want to let anybody else play with your car brake, right? So that's the current thinking.
Okay. Oh, one more question. What are the requirements to become a certified professional installer?
That I cannot answer.
Yeah, we'll follow up after the call with that one.
We know who can answer, and we'll give you the answer.
We might have to do a follow-up. They have to go through training and get certified by an accredited training program. Okay.
Yeah, but I just don't know the detail as who's accredited to give training. Right? I don't know all the details.
So another question about the auction: who's eligible to bid on the spectrum? And I'm very curious about the fees.
So 2 questions. Question number 1: anybody can bid for spectrum, right? Free country, everybody can bid about it. With regard to the fees, well, it's an auction, right? So it'd be a little bit risky for me to try to provide some insight to that because it's an auction. However, in talking to people, right, and people that are preparing budgets for this and hired lobbyists and all this, it does seem like it would be in the 4 zeros or 4 digits, right? So it would not be the 100,000s. It would be the tens of thousands or even less than that, especially for areas that are not populated. So in major center, it will go for a lot more money, right? Because you got to have the big carriers bidding for this. But where most of us here operate, it's not going to be the target of the main carriers. They already have LTE coverage. They don't have a saturation problem. They don't have an augmentation problem, in the middle of the oil field or rural America. So they are going to bid on CBRS when they have an augmentation requirement. So they're going to spend all their money on their augmentation. Also, let's all keep something in mind. All these major carriers are spending most of their available money today upgrading their downtown network to 5G. So CBRS for rural environment, not going to be their priority. So we are led to believe by the people we talk to that it will not be expensive.
And Richard says carriers will seek GAA for secondary spectrum.
Which there's no bid, right?
Yeah.
So I've talked to AT&T and we've talked to other carriers that are just confirming that, right? Rural is not strategic to them. So they're not going to invest. They're not going to invest guaranteed money in rural markets. Right.
I think we might have covered everything.
Well, we got a few minutes left to spare. So we can, Lisa, if you want, if you have other questions, or I think we can recap some of the key takeaway from us is there are some questions that were not either clearly answered with certainty or were not answered at all. We're going to rely on Lisa and we're going to get back to you guys through Lisa, right? And then as a vendor involved in that market, we're about to launch some webinars that are mainly going to be focused on education, but also on our product, right? So we'll have some education seminars coming, and as GAA become available, we'll be starting to talk about some product introduction that we're keeping under wraps at this point, just because we want to make sure that what we have will fit what they announced.
Yes, thanks. You know what? I think because we've had such great questions, I'm going to compile them and we will get really good answers to the questions that we feel we still need to fill in the gaps a bit, and we'll send it out afterward.
Good.
Yeah, it was excellent. Thank you very much, Louis, and thank you everybody for joining us. I
Lisa,
feel like great
on
job.
behalf of Redline, Lisa, thank you very, very much for inviting us to participate in this. Hopefully, folks, you got something out of it. And Lisa, as usual, pleasure to work with you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good
Bye-bye,
day,
everybody.
everybody.